When I was 8 years old, a rich kid transferred into our class. His outfit alone could buy a house, and his shoes were worth 400,000 yuan. The very next second, I saw something unbelievable, a stream of magical bullet comments floating before my eyes. They read, "Why is the toxic second male lead Makoto showing up so early? Is he planning to bully the male lead right from the start? The male lead is way too pitiful." Another comment followed, "If the male lead doesn't suffer now, how else would his traumatic childhood shape him into a lonely, love-starved soul? And how else would the female lead Willow save him and end up entangled with him forever?" But unfortunately, after they got together, her heart always yearned for Makoto, far away overseas. And the male lead? He was nothing but a stand-in for Makoto. I turned to look at Makoto, who had just sat down beside me, utterly stunned. Before I could say a word, he took out his lunchbox and arrogantly ordered, "Go wash my bowl." Yet when I looked into the untouched lunchbox, packed with crispy fried chicken and a full portion of rice, my eyes burned. "Stop spouting nonsense." Bullet comments. "He's not some toxic second. He's the bright moon hanging high in the night sky, lighting up the darkness just for me." Chapter 1. The year I turned 8. A classmate named Makoto transferred into our class, his clothes worth more than a house, his shoes alone worth 400,000 yuan. That same year, all our old wooden desks and chairs were replaced with the shiny new ones we'd only seen in textbooks. Air conditioning and computers were installed in every classroom. Even the strictest dean of students treated Makoto with surprising kindness. Despite the full classroom makeover, young Master Ito remained perpetually dissatisfied. He was assigned to sit next to me. He looked down his nose and said, "Tidy up the desk for me." At noon, some students went to the cafeteria for lunch, while others went home. Only I stayed seated. The housekeeper from Makoto's family brought over a delicate, gourmet meal. I stared at it in a daze, then gulped down 2 large mouthfuls of ice-cold water, hoping to trick my stomach with a little sleight of hand. The high and mighty heir of a wealthy family only took a few bites before he lost interest and pushed the lunchbox toward me in disgust. He ordered, "I don't like wasting food. You finish it." Just today, I read a proverb in a book, "Food given with contempt." But I was too hungry. I ate the entire meal. Makoto sat nearby, propping his head on one hand and watching me. Once I finished, he tossed over a bottle of Bueling mineral water with disdain and said, "Have a drink, then go wash the box." When I came back after washing the lunchbox, I saw 2 girls gathered around Makoto. One girl rested her cheek on her hand and asked, "Makoto, why are you sitting with George?" The other girl chimed in, "You're new, so maybe you don't know, his dad's a gambling addict. People say he even steals money and gets arrested all the time. If the dad's a big-time gambler, the kid's probably a little one. Aren't you worried he'll steal your stuff?" Chapter 2. The moment I held the lunchbox, my hands went ice cold. I stood frozen at the classroom door, only to see Makoto looking straight at me. I instantly wanted to run, to hide in a crack in the floor, to disappear where no one could see me. But Makoto stood up. His tall figure seemed to shine. He frowned and said, "Come here." At that moment, I thought he must be angry I had touched his lunchbox with dirty hands. I quickly placed it back on his desk and bowed my head, stammering, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to hide this from you." But the young Master Ito didn't throw the lunchbox away. He just looked at me calmly and asked, "Have you ever stolen anything?" Panicked, I shook my head furiously. "No, I haven't. I really haven't stolen anything. Before I could finish, Makoto turned to the 2 girls from earlier and barked. "He said he hasn't stolen anything. If you're accusing someone, you'd better have proof. If you don't, that's slander, and the police can arrest you for it." The 2 girls were startled and tried to slink away, but Makoto called out, "Hey, apologize to George, or I'll report you to the police and have you all arrested." 8-year-olds are terrified of the police, though, honestly, I went to the police station often to report things, and they rarely intervened in petty matters. But those girls didn't know that. Frightened, they apologized to me. Makoto looked around while still holding the lunchbox. There was a glimmer of satisfaction on his usually arrogant face. He said, "George, starting today, you're my lackey." Chapter 3. After school that afternoon, he tossed all the bread and snacks from his bag into my hands. He said, "I don't feel like eating. You can have them." But that night, I was beaten again by my drunk father. Everything in my school bag was taken by him. Lying on a bed made from cardboard scraps, I peeled open the only piece of chocolate I'd managed to hide. Under the dim moonlight outside the window, the chocolate tasted so sweet, and the moon was so bright. The next day, I came down with a fever and couldn't go to school. That afternoon, while class was still in session, Makoto showed up at my house, with the police. My dad was taken away again for education. I was taken to the hospital. Makoto looked slightly disheartened and muttered, I'm sorry, I don't have the power yet. There's not much I can change. Chapter 4. After being discharged, I returned to school. One day, when Makoto told me to complete a whole stack of practice exams for him, I saw the bullet comments again. They read, "Why is the toxic second male lead Makoto showing up this early? Is he here just to humiliate the male lead? Why should our male lead have to do his test papers, run his errands? This is a total insult to the male lead's dignity. The male lead is too pitiful." But some comments also said, if the male lead doesn't suffer like this, how else would his childhood trauma turn him into someone dark and love-starved, only to be saved and forever entangled with the female lead later on? Reading these, I couldn't help but glance over at Makoto. He wore a perfectly tailored British-style three-piece suit, and the golden watch on his wrist gleamed under the sunlight. Noticing my gaze, Makoto took out his lunchbox and commanded from his high horse, "Go wash the bowl." Looking at the untouched layer of fried chicken and rice inside, my eyes began to sting again. He had bought 2 sets of exercises, and every day, the food he didn't want to eat would be passed to me, always with something filling, like bread. Makoto was no toxic second male lead. He's the bright moon hanging high in the night sky, lighting up the darkness just for me. Chapter 5. I became Makoto's lackey. From the spoiler-filled bullet comments, I gradually pieced together the truth. This world was just a stand-in romance novel, and I was the tragic substitute, whose wife would eventually regret everything and live in self-inflicted torment. My father was a gambling addict. My mother worked in the red light district. She cheated, got caught by my dad, ran out and died in a car accident. I had a miserable childhood, until I met the female lead, and treated her as the only light in my life. But after we got together, she couldn't stop thinking about her god-tier crush who lived overseas, Makoto, and I was just his stand-in. When her real Prince Charming, Makoto, returned to the country, he started targeting me in all kinds of ways. In the end, I died of stomach cancer. Only then did the female lead realize her true feelings for me. Even though she lived a life of wealth and luxury and had countless suitors, she could never forget me, so she chose to stay single for the rest of her life, tormented by guilt and sorrow. But I thought, what they say in the bullet comments is just a story. This is my life. Makoto trained in boxing and martial arts. I stayed close by, handing him water and towels. When I had spare time, I picked up a few moves myself. He basically paid my dad to let me be his follower, and with the money, my dad stopped caring about me. As I read more bullet comments, something strange began to happen. They started changing. Some said, "Wait a second, this plot feels off." Others wrote, "Wasn't George supposed to grow up malnourished and end up with stomach cancer? Why does he look like he's getting stronger and healthier? George used to be so timid, now he seems different." And yet others commented, "Don't worry, it's just that he hasn't met the female supporting lead Sophia yet. It's all part of the setup. Sophia might be bratty at first and clash with the male lead, but later she totally regrets it and follows him around like a lost puppy." On the day of our middle school enrollment, I escorted Makoto to his private school, wiped down his desk, and neatly arranged his school supplies. I was about to leave. After all, I couldn't afford tuition. I didn't belong at a private school like this. But when Makoto saw me walking away, he looked at me in disbelief and snapped, "Stop right there. You're my little brother. Where do you think you're going?" Chapter 6. Makoto paid for my tuition, and I started boarding school with him. Everything seemed to be heading in a better direction. That day, a new student named Sophia transferred into our class. The bullet comments exploded. Here comes the enemies to lovers arc. Sophia finally makes her entrance. Some even said, the male lead really thought avoiding his original school would stop him from meeting Sophia. That's fate at work. Sophia may look chubby and soft now, but beauty isn't something that needs defining. Plus, she's a total hidden gem. Once she slims down, she's gonna be absolutely stunning. When Makoto saw the homeroom teacher introducing Sophia, he couldn't help but curse. He kept grumbling something else, but I didn't catch it clearly. Sophia ended up sitting right in front of me. In middle school, students began to hit puberty, and gender awareness started growing stronger. But this awareness wasn't really about physiological or psychological understanding. It was more about power dynamics and conflicting interests. Gone were the days of elementary school-style boys and girls helping each other. Now, girls naturally assumed boys should handle all the heavy lifting, and would mysteriously disappear every time we had to move desks or change classrooms. More and more boys started refusing to be morally blackmailed. The breaking point came over something minor. One day, the teacher asked the class monitor, a girl, to call 2 boys to help move a stack of test papers from the office. One of the boys directly refused, saying, "Why don't you ask the girls?" The monitor shot back confidently, "Because boys are stronger. What's wrong with doing a bit of work?" Before the boy could reply, Makoto chimed in, "So boys are strong just to carry stuff for girls? And you came back from the office empty-handed. What are you, muscle degenerate? After that incident, boys helped boys, and girls helped girls. That unspoken rule became the new norm. At first, I kept my head down and focused on studying, staying out of the drama. But the girl sitting in front of me, Sophia, seemed determined to pick a fight. One recess, I was zoning out, staring at the blackboard and thinking about a math problem. Out of nowhere, she twisted around and snapped. What are you staring at, you creep? What kind of perv stares at a girl like that? Her voice drew the whole class's attention. Makoto wasn't in the room, so I jabbed my finger towards Sophia's face and shouted. Sophia, which damn eye of yours saw me looking at you? If you keep flipping out for no reason, don't blame me for slapping you. Sophia scoffed. If you didn't look, then why are you freaking out? Got super male syndrome or something? A boy snorted. Reality check. Sweetheart, guys staring at girls is a thing. Sure, but trust me, not you. A girl added. Look how defensive he is. If he really didn't stare, why's he so worked up? Just as I was about to argue back, Sophia's eyes lit up like she'd found buried treasure. She suddenly snatched my pen off the desk and shouted. This pen is flashing. It's blinking. There's gotta be a camera in here. George, you pervert, you're spying on me, recording me. My rage boiled over. I reached out to take the pen back and explain, but in the very next second, she hurled the pen to the ground. Then jumped on it with all her weight. Crack. The pen shattered easily beneath her foot. The bullet comments were still rolling across the screen. One said, okay, Sophia might be a bit bratty now, but come on, she's just a girl. A little attitude is totally normal. But this time, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I stood up, swung my arm back, and slapped Sophia hard across the face. It cut through the air like a whip. Crack. A thunderclap that left the whole room in stunned silence. Her face instantly swelled up from the force. I'd been training in martial arts with Makoto for years. Even our coach said I had talent. That slap, thrown with everything I had, was my highest form of respect for her. The bullet comments exploded like fireworks. Wait, what happened to our weak, pitiful male lead? No. His character arc just completely collapsed. He just slapped her that hard. How can there possibly be a redemption arc later where some girl falls for him after overcoming a million obstacles? But the truth is, I never wanted some brain-dead, cliché-ridden story arc. I just want people who do wrong to face real consequences. Chapter 7. My father was called into school. When he got there, he gave me a savage beating. He cursed. You useless piece of trash. How dare you get into a fight at school? All he cared about was not having to pay compensation. Sophia was from a rich family, someone he absolutely didn't dare to offend. The teacher pointed at my face and yelled. Raised by a mom, but clearly never taught by one. Acting like a creep at this age, you'll be in jail by the time you're grown. I stood there in the office. The windows were shut, but I felt wind slicing through from all directions, just like the emptiness inside me. Was I wrong? I hit Sophia, but I couldn't fight all of them. I quietly hid my bruises, not realizing a familiar figure had flashed by just outside the window. Now, I had pride. I didn't want Makoto to see me like this. Chapter 8. On Monday, Makoto gave a speech under the national flag as the school's student representative. He stood under the blazing sun, grinning, radiant, confident, and proud, even though we wore the same school uniform. He was on a whole different level from me. Sophia turned and rolled her eyes. She sneered. See that? You're just a filthy rat from the gutter. Can you see the gap between you and Makoto now? Don't think that just because you follow him around every day, you're his friend, or that you're suddenly rich and charming. You're nothing but a loser, a mediocre man with delusional confidence. I lowered my head, the same one I used to lift just to look up at Makoto. Yeah, maybe I really was meant to die young. Buried under dirt and forgotten. What right did I have to stand beside someone like Makoto? But in the next moment, I heard Makoto speak. His voice like a hammer falling to the ground. He said loudly, I was falsely accused by one of my classmates, Sophia. I was just looking at the blackboard during class. And she accused me of harassing her, of peeping at her. Then she said my pen had a hidden camera in it, and without even asking, she smashed it. So what now? Am I supposed to attend class with my eyes shut? But my teacher didn't ask what happened. He just insulted me, said I was raised without morals, said I was acting like a pervert. So today, I want to ask everyone here, the whole school, was I being a pervert? Chapter 9. No one expected Makoto to say those things, right there, in front of the entire school. In an instant, the whole school was in an uproar. Students murmured in shock, and everyone in our class turned in unison to stare at Sophia. Her face froze. The pale fat on her cheeks trembled with visible fear. The principal's face turned ashen. He instinctively glanced toward one side of the stage. That day's flag-raising ceremony ended differently than any before. For the first time, there was no long-winded speech from school officials. The assembly was dismissed in a hurry. Later, I found out that Makoto's parents, the same ones who had donated 2 entire buildings to the school, were visiting that day. They were furious. Makoto was summoned to the principal's office. Sophia and I were called in with him. Our homeroom teacher, who had been so vicious just days ago, now wore a nervous, tight-lipped expression. She said, "Principal, I never said anything like that to Ito. Makoto is an excellent student. Outstanding performance. Great attitude. Of course I wouldn't say something like that to him. I only scolded George." The moment those words left her mouth, Makoto stepped forward. His back was straight, his voice calm and sharp. He smiled and said, "Principal, what makes George different from me? Why should he be the one to endure verbal abuse from a teacher? Is this what our school stands for? Letting girls slander boys, replacing truth with gender bias, automatically assuming the boy is guilty." For the first time, I saw young Master Ito being completely ruthless. The principal wiped away invisible sweat from his forehead, then cast a nervous glance at Makoto's parents, who were sitting in silence off to the side, cold and distant. He stammered, "Of course not. Our school would never condone any kind of abuse against students." That day, I watched as the once arrogant homeroom teacher lowered her proud head and apologized to me. That day, Sophia was forced to apologize as well. The teacher was fired. Sophia transferred to another school. Makoto's parents, from beginning to end, merely swept their eyes coldly across me. Once, that day, the sun hung high in the sky, blazing, blinding. Makoto said, "George, did you see it? Today, they apologized to you, but not because of me. They apologized because of my parents' status. That's why we need to grow stronger. Strong enough that no one would dare to mistreat us. We have to take our fate into our own hands." That day, I looked up at the burning sun above me and thought, I will never be that pathetic male lead in some tragic plot, who suffers for a girl, struggles through hell, and dies miserably in the end. Chapter 10. It was also on that day that I found out everything I had was being funded by Makoto, and had absolutely nothing to do with the Ito family. I was confused. Makoto just smiled, his eyes shining so brightly, it was like stars lived in them. He said, "That's because I think you're worth it. I've got great taste, you know. I think, my friend, you are no ordinary person. So let's just call it an early investment." I kept replaying those words, "my friend," over and over in my mind. The barren, desolate plains inside my heart suddenly seemed to sprout green shoots all at once. For those words alone, I swore I wouldn't let Makoto down. After that, Makoto became busier. He no longer went to martial arts training with me. Often, he didn't even show up at school. The next time I saw him was at the school gala. He wore a custom-tailored suit and stood under the spotlight, gleaming like a star. Once again, I was reminded of the distance between us, but this time, once his piano performance ended, I went backstage and found him. I couldn't hold back my excitement as I told him what had happened recently. I said, "The teacher said I'm good at math. He took me to a math competition, and I got 3rd place." Makoto smiled and patted my shoulder. "That's amazing, Wong. You really nailed it." I still didn't understand why Makoto kept enrolling me in martial arts classes, but if Makoto arranged it, there must be a reason. I was his little brother. I just had to make him proud. Every year, during the school's annual physical exams, Makoto always brought me along. He'd say with total confidence, "You're my little brother. Of course you're getting checked up with me." We both turned out fine in our reports. Sometimes I felt like he cared more about my results than his own. If I had even a small issue, he'd pull the doctor aside and ask questions in detail. I asked him why. He responded, all high and mighty, "Isn't it only natural that I care about my little brother? If you get sick or injured, who's gonna run errands for me?" But by then, Makoto hardly asked me to run errands anymore. Chapter 11. The year we graduated middle school and entered high school, I got into the same prestigious private high school as Makoto, thanks to my outstanding math scores, but we were placed in different classes. This school was full of students from wealthy, powerful families. I was the only one with a humble background. During the placement exams at the beginning of the year, I ranked first in the entire grade, standing in front of the honor roll. I spotted Makoto. His gaze paused on my name. The corner of his mouth lifted ever so slightly, but there was also a look of subtle relief. In that moment, I thought, he's hiding something from me. I quickly scanned the list and found Makoto's name too. His academic performance wasn't bad at all. When he turned around, he saw me too. I waved at him, about to walk over and say hi, but the school bell rang. His classroom was on one side, mine on the other. We were swept apart by the crowd. Even so, I still caught sight of Makoto giving me a big thumbs up. His mouth moved, just enough for me to read his lips. "You're awesome." Chapter 12. Once high school started, Makoto seemed to get even busier. He was always so exceptional, always shining like a star, just in high school, and he was already starting his own company. I didn't understand any of that. All I could do was throw myself into studying. Thankfully, I was decent at it. I worked like hell, pouring everything into my academics. I kept winning award after award in math competitions. One time, after returning to school from an intensive training camp, I was cornered in the classroom by a few punks. I blocked a backpack that was being swung at me. The guy in front, clearly the ringleader, cursed at me. "George, are you fucking looking for death? You dared mess with my girl." I didn't even know who he was, much less who his girl was supposed to be. Seeing me stay silent, he grew more furious. "Pin him down. I'm gonna loosen his bones for him." At first, the other guys hesitated. Then the ringleader sneered. "What are you afraid of? Makoto's not even here. He's just Makoto's lapdog. So what if we beat him up?" My eyes narrowed. Turns out, all those years of martial arts training hadn't been wasted. A few petty bullies playing tough at school were no match for me. I grabbed whatever I could from nearby, and within seconds, I'd taken down every single one of them. I thought that would be the end of it, but it only got worse. They started stuffing dead rats in my desk drawer, smearing glue on my chair, putting thumbtacks in my locker, and deliberately knocking over my lunch in the cafeteria. They were doing everything they could to mess with my life, so I gathered the evidence, and went straight to the principal. I said, "Principal, I think it's time I transfer to another school." Chapter 13. By then, it was already our final year of high school. The school's academic performance hadn't been great in recent years, but I wasn't just a top student. My math talent had become a source of pride for the school. The principal tensed the moment he heard me mention transferring. He asked what was going on. I submitted all the evidence. When the boys were called in, they still looked angry and unrepentant. Once again, I stood inside the principal's office, but this time, Makoto wasn't standing beside me. Still, I stood tall, back straight, voice firm. The principal scolded the group harshly. They were all written up and had their parents notified. After this, I realized something. Once you have ability, standing tall isn't so hard. When you have value, the world starts making room for you. But Makoto still found out. He made a special trip back to school, though he looked a little worn from travel. His gaze was sharp. He already resembled a calm, composed adult. He looked at me just like he did when we were 8 years old. He asked, "Little bro, you got bullied. Why didn't you tell me?" But this time, our eyes met on equal ground. I smiled and said, "Didn't want to bother you over something so small." I don't know what Makoto did behind the scenes, but the next day, every one of those students who had been messing with me never showed up again. I tried to give all my competition prize money to Makoto, but he shoved my bank card right back into my hand. He said, "We're brothers. You start talking money, it gets awkward. You know me. I'm not in this for the money." Chapter 14. Makoto rushed back to school as soon as he heard I got admitted through recommendation. He was carrying a brand new, unopened laptop box as he walked toward me. When he handed it over, it felt heavy in my hands. I hesitated to take it. He frowned impatiently and said, "This thing's just collecting dust in my room. Sooner or later, I was gonna toss it. Might as well give it to you. Either take it or chuck it for me." It was the first time I ever had an electronic device of my own. It wasn't until much later that I realized this had always been a knot in his heart, a lingering attachment from the past, and also a farewell long overdue. He untied that knot, and in doing so, pushed me farther ahead, facing the sunlight. He finally told me his plans. He said, "I'm going to study abroad." I looked at the light radiating from him and caught up to walk alongside him. I said, "Congrats." Makoto stopped walking, tilted his head to look at me, and for the first time, there was a trace of concern in his eyes. I always felt like there was a sadness in Makoto's gaze that didn't belong to someone his age. Sometimes, it even felt like he was looking past me, seeing someone else entirely. I couldn't help but hit him with a surprise shoulder slam. Sneak attack. He dodged with a sidestep, finally showing a more playful, youthful side of himself. He laughed. "Ha ha ha. George, didn't think you had that move." Color me surprised. Seeing the smile on his face, I didn't mess around any further. We threw our arms over each other's shoulders, just like we used to back in elementary school. I said, "Makoto, I'm no longer the George who didn't even have enough to eat. Now, you can just go do what you want. No need to worry about me. I can't live under your protection forever. I want to be a friend worthy of standing shoulder to shoulder with you." Makoto smiled. There was pride in his eyes, and under the blazing sun, a new burst of energy in his spirit. He laughed and said, "Guess that's my bad, then. I was just worried you'd run into trouble after I leave the country." He paused, then added, "Also, you've gotta be careful around your dad." Makoto looked like he wanted to say more, but in the end, He just opened his mouth and said nothing at all. Chapter 15. Makoto went abroad. On the first day of school, I once again saw the long-lost barrage of comments. One read, "Ah, finally the plot's reaching the moment when the male and female leads meet." Another commented, "The male lead is seriously just a walking tragedy. His dad is a total POS. Doesn't even believe the MC is his biological son and refuses to take a paternity test. Now he's even trying to get someone to harvest his kidney. Wait, what college is this? Peking University." I remember in my first read-through he was just going to an average uni. I looked at the screen, my eyes narrowing. Over the years, thanks to Makoto, my dad hadn't dared to bother me, but the day I went to register, sure enough, I saw him. He looked even older than before, clearly. Life hadn't treated him kindly these years, but the menace in his eyes was stronger than ever. When I was a kid, I used to fear him, but now, I wasn't scared anymore. Then I saw more comments. MC better not start feeling sorry for this guy. Don't go eat with him. He's trying to pay off his gambling debt. He drugged the soda. You'll wake up missing something vital. I looked at Pablo. It was hard to believe people still did this kind of illegal organ trade in this day and age. But then again, he was a gambler, and a twisted, insane one at that. What couldn't he do? I went with Pablo to eat. He pulled out a bottle of Coke from his pocket and handed it to me. A sycophantic grin plastered on his face. He said, "George, you're really making your old man proud. Someone told me you got into Peking University. I remember when you were little. You loved this stuff, right? I wanted it when I was little, because I always saw other kids drinking it, and I never got to. Whenever I said I wanted a Coke, Pablo would respond with a beating and a stream of insults." Chapter 16. I pretended to pass out, and Pablo loaded me into a car. It was only when we arrived that I realized this deal was worth 500,000 yuan. Once I confirmed Pablo had received the money. That very night, I took down every last one of the criminals who'd arranged the sale. They were brutish, but no match for me. I called the cops, hired a lawyer, took Pablo and the rest to court, caught red-handed in an illegal human trafficking deal. Pablo was sentenced to 10 years in prison. Chapter 17. The day Pablo was sent to prison, the barrage of comments reappeared. What's going on? How's Willow supposed to save the male lead now? Another read. How is the romance plot supposed to move forward like this? I thought I might never have anything to do with this so-called female lead, but then that day came. In this supposedly safe and peaceful age, I was mugged just outside the campus gates by a few punks wielding knives. Just as I was about to take them on, a stunning woman with ethereal charm appeared, practically glowing with a magnetic aura. I knew. This was the legendary Willow. A few bodyguards followed behind her. She shouted, "Stop! Stop this right now." But before Willow could even finish, I grabbed the punk in the lead and flipped him clean over my shoulder. Bang! He slammed into the ground. The punks froze, startled, backing away in fear. Willow's words got stuck in her throat. I gave her a cold glare and said, "Are you telling me to stop? I suggest you stay out of things that don't concern you." Willow couldn't help but take a step back. The punks, relying on their numbers, didn't even have a real plan. They were easy to handle. Some of them even looked like they were about to call me boss on the spot. I brushed non-existent dust from my hands, gave them a lazy look, and said, "I don't take disciples." Chapter 18. That day, I didn't even spare Willow a second glance. But then the Liu family's butler came looking for me. He handed me a body double contract. They wanted me to act as Willow's stand-in. They were offering 200,000 yuan per month. I raised an eyebrow and said, "That's a decent chunk of money, but are you guys legally illiterate or something? This contract is invalid. What's the point of making it so formal? Makes it easier to sue me later if I breach it. Sorry, I don't have time to play some identity-swapping game with your spoiled little princess." And again, the barrage of comments popped up. Honestly, I think this is pretty good. George isn't that spineless pushover male lead anymore. I've always hated characters like Willow, but then there were some that read, "I want to see the romance plot. How's there gonna be one like this?" Because I needed to work part-time, I chose to live off campus. But that day, at home, Willow actually came to see me herself. When I opened the door, there she was, dressed in high-end designer fashion. She wrinkled her nose in disdain at the tiny rental apartment. She rolled her eyes and said, "A broke loser like you still acts all cocky. What? Not satisfied with the price? If you can act like Makoto well enough and be my obedient little dog, I might even pay you extra." At that moment, I couldn't hold it in anymore. What kind of trash is this? How could someone like her be the female lead? She insulted me, and in doing so, insulted Makoto too. I pulled out my phone, ready to call the police. She just sneered and scoffed. "If you call the cops, I don't mind having you locked up instead." After all, she suddenly yanked open the button at her collar, and said, "You won't be able to prove you didn't do something to me." She let out a cold laugh and said, You've got two choices: sign the contract, or rot in jail. Psychopath. An actual, certifiable psychopath. My brows furrowed tightly. I was seething inside. Absolutely. Fucking insane. And of course, the comments were flying. Willow is absolutely disgusting. So if the male lead refuses to be her lapdog, she's going to frame him. It's like the police and the law vanish whenever it involves Willow in this story. Another comment read, even outside of a novel world, don't tell me stuff like this doesn't happen in real life. And another, I just want to transmigrate into the book and slap Willow twice. Funny thing is, so do I, but obviously not here and now. So I instantly switched expressions, putting on a flattering grin. Lou Missy, what I'm trying to say is, being your dog, that's not exciting at all. Why don't we play something a bit more thrilling? I raised an eyebrow. Outdoors. Risky. Exhibitionist. Willow's eyes widened. A flash of something passed through her gaze. She bit her lip and said, George, you're so bad. I like that. I honestly don't get it. Not at all. How the hell is someone this manipulative and shallow the female lead? If Makoto ended up marrying someone like her, he'd be nauseated for the rest of his life. Chapter 19. Willow and I went out to the countryside. I was the one driving. I even brought a rope. Since in this world, the police don't seem to work when it comes to the female lead, then I'd take matters into my own hands. Right now, I was incredibly grateful that Makoto had taught me martial arts since I was a kid. Out in the wild, no police. This was the end of the road for Willow. I yanked Willow, still blushing like she was ready for some kinky scene, straight out of the car. Didn't give her a second to react. I raised my arm and swung without mercy. Left slap, right slap, 2 clean hits across the face. She collapsed unconscious right there. The comment section exploded. What just happened? Is this outdoors? Risky. Exhibitionist. I paid money and this is what I get. Others wrote, damn, those slaps were satisfying. Thank God Makoto stopped the MC from becoming a simp. I want a dozen brothers like this. Wearing gloves. I cleaned Willow up a bit. Then I tied her to a tree with the rope. I even poured water on her to wake her up. Outdoors. Risky. Exhibitionist. When Willow finally realized where she was, she screamed, George, how dare you treat me like this? When I get back, you're dead. Your whole family is dead. I ignored her crazy Yandere lines. I pulled out a knife and traced it gently over her skin. I said, I've taken pictures of everything. If you ever pull that manipulative crap in front of me again, I'll make sure the entire world sees what the noble Lou heiress really looks like. Of course, if you want to go out with some dignity, I could also end it for you right now. I was smiling. Willow burst into tears. I stepped back, pinching my nose in disgust. When she looked around and saw that we were truly alone, she finally realized I was dead serious. I really could kill her. She started sobbing. I'm sorry, George. I'm so sorry. I won't do it again. I swear. Please, just let me go. Slap. Another one across the face. I spat. Fucking disgusting. I pressed the knife to her throat. I said, come near me again, and I will kill you. Then I took all her jewelry, pawned it for some decent second-hand cash. The next day, I was kind enough to call the Lou family's butler and let him know where to pick her up. I waited another 2 days. As expected, in a world like this. When it came to Willow, the cops were useless. No one came for me, and Willow didn't dare show her face again. Chapter 20. In my senior year, Makoto came back. By then, he was no longer the same person as before. Now, he was someone the Lou family wouldn't dare mess with. In just 1 year, he dismantled the Lou Corporation. The Lou Group declared bankruptcy. Willow lost her female lead Halo and was exposed for numerous illegal activities. She was sent to prison, sewing clothes behind bars. She would never be a threat to us again. The story's plot wrapped up. The barrage of comments rolled in one last time. It's over. This storyline was actually pretty fresh. Tell me this isn't way better than the old version. Even though the so-called plot was over, my life with Makoto wasn't. I planned to continue my research in mathematics. I had some real talent in this field. Over the years, I had won countless awards, and at nearly every award ceremony, Makoto was there, sitting in the audience, clapping, his eyes full of pride and approval. Every single time, I'd thank just one person. I'd say, thank you, to my best friend, Mr. Makoto. Chapter 21. That year, he bought a villa. On New Year's Day, he invited me to spend the holiday with him. That night, the moon was incredibly bright, so bright it seemed almost unreal. I ate 5 huge plates of dumplings. They tasted amazing. After we were full and satisfied, Makoto brought out 2 full boxes of fireworks. He handed me a match and said, just like when we were kids, one for each of us. The fireworks lit up. Boom. The sky burst open with round after round of dazzling light, as if mysterious gates of time and space were opening above us. Makoto was smiling. His expression more relaxed than I'd ever seen before. He said, "George, aren't these fireworks just beautiful?" I watched as they exploded across the sky, brief moments of brilliance. Then silence once again. Above it all hung a full moon, brighter and more radiant than even the fireworks. Makoto seemed to be waiting for my answer. I turned to look at him, smiled, and said, "Of course they're beautiful." Extra chapter, Makoto. I didn't find out Willow had a boyfriend until the day I returned to China. I'll admit it, I did like Willow a little. She told me, "There's this guy who keeps clinging to me. Can you pretend to be my boyfriend for a while?" Back then, I felt my heart skip a beat, and I said yes. I had no idea that decision would end up pushing someone else straight into the abyss. Willow said she had already broken up with George. She said he was a psycho ex-boyfriend who stalked her and threatened her constantly. She seemed genuinely distressed by his harassment. I had never met George, so I naturally leaned toward believing Willow. What I didn't know at the time was that our mutual friends, in order to curry favor with me, were constantly targeting George behind his back. Then, one night, I was driving Willow home from a bar. She was completely drunk. That's when I saw him, a man who looked a bit like me, maybe 50% similar, but his eyes were full of sorrow. It was raining outside that night. He had clearly been waiting for a long time. He handed me a towel, then quietly went to the kitchen to make me a bowl of hot soup to warm up. He gave me a bitter smile and said he would leave. His back as he walked away looked hollow, like a stray dog with nowhere to go. That was when I started thinking, maybe George wasn't as horrible as Willow had painted him to be. But I didn't dig deeper. Not until I heard it from someone else. George had been Willow's stand-in, because she loved me too much. So I started digging, and then I learned. George hadn't stayed with her out of love. He had been forced into it. The whole thing felt absurd, completely insane. That's when it hit me. I was just the toxic second male lead in some twisted romance novel. I didn't want to be the villain standing in the way of a guy like George, a guy who actually had loyalty and guts. So I asked George what he wanted. I helped him break free from Willow, got him a job, helped him study the things he actually wanted to pursue. But I never expected that by cutting ties with Willow and taking George with me, she'd accuse me of breaking her heart. And Lou Sr. would fly into a rage and start attacking my family's company. My family went bankrupt. George and I, two guys with nothing left, ended up in a small city in the south, working whatever jobs we could find just to survive. During the day we worked. At night, we played co-op games together. Honestly, those weren't bad days. But George kept losing weight. Eventually, I realized he'd been hiding the fact that he was coughing up blood. I rushed him to the hospital. Diagnosis: terminal stage stomach cancer. He looked at me with guilt in his eyes. I never planned to get sick, Makoto, but this time, I think I really might go first. I told him I was scared, but he just smiled. I'm not in pain. Really, I'm not. How could he not be? He had suffered too much in this life. He was simply used to the pain. In those last days, we stopped going out. We stayed in and tried to finish every game we'd never completed, so we wouldn't leave behind any regrets. Almost all our money was spent on his medication. After one accident burned out our graphics card, we didn't even have the money to repair the computer. By that point, I had made up my mind. I was going to kidnap Willow, force the Liu family to cough up the money to save George. But George saw through me. He shook his head and said, "Makoto, I've never had a proper Lunar New Year. I've never lit fireworks before. New Year's is just around the corner. Can you wait until after the eve to go find her?" On Lunar New Year's Eve, I tried making dumplings using a recipe I found online. They turned out ugly. During boiling, they all burst open. The meat stuffing mixed into the soup, making it cloudy and murky. The taste was mediocre, at best. But that night, George, against all expectations, finished a huge bowl. He laughed and said, "Makoto, who knew you had this kind of skill? Next year, I want another batch of your dumplings." I smiled and replied, "Deal." After dinner, I brought out the cheap fireworks I had bought. We went out to the concrete lot next to our rental. He sat in his wheelchair, smiling as he watched me. I walked over to light the fireworks. Boom. A dazzling burst of light exploded in the sky. I turned back to George and asked, "George, aren't these fireworks beautiful?" But before he could see the fireworks I had lit just for him, his eyes had already closed, and they never opened again. Before the citywide mock exam for the college entrance test, I, as usual, secured first place. My deskmate looked at me with envy. "Martin, you're amazing. You've never dropped in rank since the first year of high school." Before I could reply, bullet comments suddenly appeared before my eyes. Haha. This supporting male character still doesn't know that everything he has is just setting the stage for the protagonist. Serves him right. Why should Martin be born with everything? Rich family, popular girls chasing after him, and a guaranteed spot at Peking University. People born at the finish line like him should lose to someone like Oliver, who's had to struggle all his life and never gives up. Heh, the system gave Oliver a cheat code, 3 chances to swap out everything the supporting role has. From then on, he'll rise to the top. My heart skipped a beat, and I almost couldn't hold back the smile tugging at my lips. Wasn't this a godsend? Chapter 1. When the overall rankings for the citywide mock exam were posted, my name was still proudly sitting at the top of the list. The whole class surrounded me, chattering excitedly. Martin, your spot at Peking University is basically guaranteed. They might even contact you early. So jealous of you, unlike us, still drowning in test prep, terrified we'll screw up the real thing. As they looked at me with eyes full of envy, I curled my lips in boredom and turned my gaze to the window. A pair of sparrows flying freely outside caught my attention. Martin, you're really amazing. Your grades haven't dropped since the first year. With the ring of the class bell, the students scattered, leaving only my deskmate, Oliver, speaking to me in a soft voice. I pulled my attention back and looked at Oliver. He wore plain clothes and spoke to me with a trace of awkwardness. And then, the bullet comments started rolling again, line after line tearing me down while praising Oliver. TCH, Martin, he's nothing but a spoiled brat with a silver spoon. Would he still have these grades without elite education and a powerful family? Exactly. The real inspiration is Oliver, climbing his way up from a mountain village. Even though he ranked only around 50 this time, everyone knows how hard he's worked. I didn't say anything. I don't deny Oliver came from hardship and studied hard to change his fate, but the effort it takes to consistently rank first is not something that can be dismissed with a casual. He comes from a good family, waking up at 3 a.m. every morning to do practice problems, studying until 11 p.m., and only sleeping 4 hours a night. Only God knows how I survived that. I wish I were you. Oliver sighed, his expression flickering. I knew that wasn't just a casual remark, and with those bullet comments floating in the air, I realized clearly, Oliver truly wanted to swap out my life for his own. Oliver, everyone has their own path. You're not doing bad at all with your scores. Getting into a top-tier university isn't a problem. You'll have a bright future. I tried to comfort him. What you earn with your own effort is always more reliable than what's handed to you. You wouldn't understand. Your whole life has already been planned out for you. Oliver slumped over his desk, mumbling faintly. I opened my test paper and followed along as the teacher went over the answers, no longer paying attention to him. What you can't have will always seem better, but kind words won't save a damned soul. If Oliver really plans to use his 3 swap-outs on me, then don't blame me for forgetting our 3 years of friendship. Chapter 2. Actually, I had a pretty good relationship with Oliver. I was even the one who took the initiative to request sitting next to him. Back in our first year of high school, he stood out awkwardly in the lineup of new students. His clothes were faded from too many washes, and his dark skin made him look completely out of place among the others. The classmates around him instinctively kept their distance, whispering to each other while giving him condescending looks, occasionally letting out snickers. I frowned as I watched Oliver try to bury his head into his chest like an ostrich. Clearing my throat, I walked over and stood beside him, casting a calm gaze around the students nearby. Only then did the schoolyard bullying come to a halt. I'm Martin Chan. Nice to meet you, I said evenly to the still cowering Oliver. He looked up in surprise, eyes meeting mine, clean, well-groomed, and confident, then answered with a hint of self-consciousness. Hi, I'm Oliver. I gave him a small smile. From now on, we're in the same class. Let's look out for each other. When the class was assigning seats, of course no one wanted to sit with Oliver. Nobody said it outright, but the look of distaste in their eyes deeply affected this kid who had come from a rural mountain village. Standing at the front of the class again, he turned back into an ostrich. Watching him on the verge of tears, I sighed, raised my hand, and said to the teacher, "Sir, let him sit with me." Back then, Oliver's eyes were filled with gratitude. Knowing Oliver had a tough life, I didn't mind helping him out a bit more. Every day at lunch in the cafeteria, I'd ask for 2 extra meat dishes. I'd pretend I couldn't finish them and give them all to Oliver. At first, he'd feel embarrassed and try to refuse, but later, he got used to it and stopped saying anything. As soon as I handed the food over, he'd devour it like he hadn't eaten in days. Over the next 3 years, Oliver grew from a scrawny, dark-skinned country boy into a tall, strong, and energetic young man. In our second year, we had to choose between arts and sciences. Oliver made up his mind to go into the science stream, just because I did. I tried to reason with him. Oliver, you should choose your own path. You're obviously better at liberal arts. Why give it up? But he firmly shook his head. I can't continue in arts without you there. I'd be completely lost in the class. I wouldn't even be able to focus on studying. Martin, only by sticking with you can I study properly. And besides, even if I struggle at first, with your help, I believe I can catch up. When I couldn't talk him out of it, I had no choice but to let it be. Chapter 3. After class, Veronica came bouncing over from the class next door and placed a box of chocolates on my desk. Martin. Here, these are chocolates my parents brought back from overseas. After that, she casually leaned on my desk as she usually did and began chatting. They want you to come over this weekend. It's been a while since they last saw you. Our families had been close for generations. In fact, our marriage had been arranged since we were kids. The female lead has finally appeared, and she's as beautiful as expected. No wonder she's the campus belle. Exactly. Once our boy Oliver finishes the swap out and gets with her, he'll be able to climb the social ladder thanks to her powerful family. Haha. But that's for later. Oliver will wait until after college to swap out Martin's family background to boost his career. That's when he and the girl will really be together. So he plans to swap out my family after college. I silently etched the bullet comments into my memory. Hey, Martin, are you even listening to me? Veronica waved her hand in front of my face, clearly annoyed by my lack of attention. Veronica, don't blame Martin. He's probably just under a lot of stress lately. He keeps zoning out. I've reminded him several times, but it doesn't help. I'm honestly worried that if he keeps this up, he won't be able to maintain his grades. Oliver jumped in to explain to Veronica, sounding concerned on the surface, but every word was laced with thorns, implying I'd lost my focus and wasn't trying hard anymore. What does me talking to Martin have to do with you? Veronica shot back. If you're so free, worry about yourself first. Even at his worst, Martin's still better than you. I knew Veronica's temper. As a rich girl born with a silver spoon, she never had any respect for someone like Oliver, who acted like a suck-up. Over the past 3 years, she'd often complained to me about him, telling me to stay away, even saying he brought bad luck. Right on cue, more bullet comments scrolled across my vision. Someone kill me. Classic tsundere setup. The more she hates him now, the more she'll love him later. He. Just keep yelling. Veronica, you have no idea how much you'll rely on Oliver later. I watched calmly as Veronica scolded Oliver to the point his face turned crimson. After a moment, I stepped in to stop her. Enough. Veronica, Oliver didn't mean anything by it. Tell your parents I'll stop by. Only then did Veronica throw one last sideways glance at Oliver. With a huff, she lifted her chin and strutted out of the classroom. Haha. Seriously, Veronica was talking to Martin. What's it got to do with you, Oliver? No one asked for your opinion. He was basically asking to get roasted. The laughter and mockery from the class made Oliver clench his fists. I lowered my head, uninterested, and continued reviewing my test paper. But I could still feel Oliver shooting me glances from the side, no longer filled with gratitude, but with a growing, bitter resentment. Chapter 4. Oliver, is there anything you don't understand lately? It's been a while since you asked me about any problems. Just before heading home after school, I asked Oliver. His hand, mid-motion while packing his bag, paused for a second. Then he forced a light tone and replied, "There's nothing I need help with anymore." He pulled a bitter smile at the corner of his mouth. Besides, no matter how hard I try, I'll never beat you, Mr. Number 1. Ugh, he's totally provoking our Oliver on purpose. What a show-off. Go ahead. Bask in your glory now. Everything you have will belong to Oliver soon enough. Let's see how smug you'll be then. Can't stand these spoiled rich boys. What do you even know about Oliver's struggle? You think being born at the finish line gives you the right to look down on the rest of us? Reading the bullet comments, I finally understood. They were just like Oliver. Envious, bitter, unable to stand seeing someone doing better than them. That's why they supported Oliver without question. But still, in the end, I wanted to pull this brother of 3 years back from the edge. Oliver, the things you earn through your own efforts, that's what you can truly rely on. Shortcuts always come with a fall. There's still time left. Give it your all. A bright future is still waiting for you. Enough. Oliver shouted, slamming his backpack hard on the desk. What gives you the right to lecture me? You, born at the top of the pyramid, do you have any idea what it's like for people like us? Talking about hard work like it's that easy. Martin, even if I gave everything I had, I could never catch up to you. He grabbed his bag and stormed out of the classroom without looking back. I stared deeply at his retreating figure and murmured to myself, Oliver, this is the last time I'll warn you. The choice is yours. If you insist on making the wrong one, don't blame me for casting aside our friendship. Chapter 5. Martin, I wasn't in a good mood yesterday. Don't take it personally. I was just talking nonsense. The next morning, as soon as he walked into the classroom, Oliver came up to me with a big grin, trying to explain away what had happened the day before. I nodded slightly, signaling that it was no big deal. I hadn't taken it to heart. He slung an arm around my shoulder. I knew my buddy Martin wouldn't hold a grudge, but he had no idea just how fake that smile looked on his face right now. The bell rang. Our homeroom teacher walked in, and Oliver quickly sat back down and composed himself. 3 days from now, Peking University will be selecting a group of top-performing students for a mock exam. Those with outstanding scores may even be offered early admission. If anyone in class wants to participate, you can sign up now. The teacher looked directly at me. It was obvious he wanted me to join. I raised my hand. Sir, I'd like to take the exam. He nodded in approval and then glanced around the rest of the class. Anyone else? No sooner had he finished speaking than Oliver shot his hand up eagerly. Sir, I want to take it too. The teacher looked at Oliver and furrowed his brows. He hesitated for a moment, then said with some reluctance, Oliver, this test was prepared by experts from Peking University. It's even harder than the actual college entrance exam. I think it's best if you focus on preparing for the Gaokao. Oliver bit his lip, clearly holding back frustration. Sir, are you saying I'm not good enough? His words backed the teacher into a corner, afraid someone might accuse him of discriminating against a student. The teacher fumbled. No, I just meant we should focus on where we can do our best. Ugh. I can't stand this teacher, lifting one student up just to put another down. What makes you think our Oliver can't handle it? Exactly. No one can stop Oliver from participating. This is his first swap out. He's going to steal Martin's test performance and make the Peking University professor see his true potential. Yes, that way. When Oliver uses the second swap out to take Martin's actual Gaokao score, it'll look justified. He'll even get accepted by that famous professor and become their most promising student. And just like that, it all clicked. So Oliver's 3 swap outs would be, 1 for the Peking University mock exam, 1 for my Gaokao results, and the last for my family. I looked at Oliver, his eyes slightly red, playing the part of the wronged victim. I asked him quietly, "You're sure you want to do this?" Oliver turned to me and nodded without hesitation. Looking at him, so determined to take everything I had, I thought for a moment and then raised my hand again to speak to the teacher. Sir, let Oliver take it. If he wants to try, let him try. The teacher had been searching for a way to gently talk Oliver out of it, something that wouldn't hurt his pride. But since I had already spoken on Oliver's behalf, he finally relented. I turned to Oliver, who was now visibly excited. Oliver, don't pressure yourself too much. Just give it a try. Martin, I'm going to do my best. Who knows? Maybe I'll beat you this time. You'd better be careful not to fall behind. Oliver's voice was full of confidence, and I caught a trace of coldness flashing through his eyes. Chapter 6. At lunch in the cafeteria, Oliver naturally came to sit next to me. Just then, Veronica showed up with a few of her girlfriends and walked over. Martin, I heard you signed up for Peking University's early entrance exam. I nodded as I continued eating. Yeah, I want to give it a shot. Veronica, as if it were the most obvious thing in the world, added, this test was basically made for you. If you're saying it's just a try, then no one else even deserves to participate. At that moment, Oliver suddenly slammed his chopsticks down onto his tray. I signed up too. I don't think there's any reason I shouldn't. Veronica glanced at Oliver's self-assured expression and let out a mocking laugh. You, and you're not even embarrassed saying that out loud? Oliver's face flushed with anger, his neck turning red as his chest heaved with frustration. I'm not joking, and I believe this time, I'll score better than Martin. Veronica burst into laughter. That's the funniest thing I've heard in my entire life. Oliver, who gave you that confidence? Joan of Arc. Oliver's eyes darted slyly before he tried goading her. You don't believe me? How about we make a bet? Veronica glanced at him with disdain. What's there not to believe? Sure, what are we betting? Oliver responded immediately. If I pass the exam and score better than Martin, you agree to be my girlfriend. And if you fail, then I'll call you grandma whenever I see you, and stay at least 10 feet away. Veronica agreed without hesitation. Deal. But she didn't notice the gleam in Oliver's eyes, possessive, greedy. I tapped my fingers lightly on the table. All right, enough. We're not kids anymore. Stop being childish. Only then did Veronica and Oliver sit down and eat their food quietly. But the small smile tugging at the corner of Oliver's lips made it clear, he wasn't calm inside at all. Maybe I stared at him too directly, because Oliver quickly wiped the grin off his face and leaned in to explain softly. Martin, don't take it the wrong way. I just can't stand how Veronica always acts so high and mighty. I wanted to knock her down a peg. Everyone knows you and Veronica have been engaged since childhood. I wouldn't dream of trying to steal her from you. And anyway, there's no way I could score higher than you. Ha, unless a miracle happens. I didn't respond. I simply turned back to my tray and continued eating. But I still heard Oliver mutter to himself in a low voice, followed by a dry chuckle. In this world, anything can happen. I, Oliver, am going to create a miracle. Chapter 7. Today was the day the early entrance exam results were to be released, and the bullet comments had already started flying wildly from early morning. Get ready. Our boy Oliver is about to slap someone in the face. Haha. This might be a small step on Oliver's road to success, but it's a giant leap in changing his destiny. Popcorn and soda ready. I can't wait to see Martin's face when he realizes what just happened. They were all eagerly anticipating the moment Oliver would swap out my results, rise in glory, and utterly humiliate me. Martin, how are you feeling? Results are almost out. Think you've got it? Before our homeroom teacher arrived to check the results, Oliver leaned in close, fishing for information. I think it went fine. Hearing my confident answer, Oliver let out a long sigh and smiled from ear to ear. Heh, Martin, I felt pretty good about this one too. Who knows? Maybe I actually beat you this time. He winked at me playfully. When you lose your first place, don't get too upset. Okay. I waved a hand casually. If your score really is better than mine, then it's thanks to your hard work. Why would I be mad? Oliver scratched his head and gave a sheepish laugh. Yeah, all hard work, of course. LOL. Watching Oliver mess with Martin is hilarious. Can't wait to see Martin break down crying while Oliver comforts him, and Martin might even thank him for it. The bullet comments were buzzing with excitement, already celebrating Oliver's supposed win. All right, who wants to check first? The homeroom teacher walked in and booted up the computer to pull up our results. Let Martin go first, we can start with the good news, Oliver said, pushing me toward the front. I stepped up and gave the teacher my exam number. The network loaded slowly, and then the page appeared. Every subject listed, followed by a massive 0. The teacher had just taken a sip of tea and promptly spit it all over the screen, eyes bulging wide in disbelief. Martin, 0 points. I glanced to the side. Oliver was doing his best to hide the grin creeping up his face, but the corners of his lips were still lifting. I'd thought he just wanted to swap our scores. I hadn't expected him to completely destroy my result, to nail me to a pillar of shame and ruin my image in front of the Peking University examiners. Martin, how could you possibly? Sorry, teacher. Maybe something went wrong during the test, but I accept the result. I remained calm and composed. The teacher, clearly distressed, started trying to help me out. Should I contact Peking University and have them pull up your test sheet? I shook my head. No need to trouble them, sir. But Martin, this is a rare opportunity. Sir, Martin already said he accepts it. Oliver interrupted, seizing the moment to cut the teacher off. You can let it go. You haven't checked my score yet. The teacher had no choice. With a glance of helplessness toward me, he turned back to the computer and began typing. Martin, it's okay. One slip-up doesn't define you. You're a top student. The real college entrance exam is still ahead. Everyone stumbles once in a while. Don't let it get to you. I nodded nonchalantly. Oliver, seeing that I showed no reaction, none of the frustration or heartbreak he was hoping for, to highlight his triumph, finally smacked his lips and turned his attention back to the screen. Oliver, your result, also 0. The homeroom teacher sprayed out another mouthful of tea, this time fully ashamed. Both students he had personally recommended had scored 0. This can't be. How is this possible? Oliver's face went pale with panic. He suddenly shoved the teacher aside and rushed up to the computer, frantically refreshing the page over and over again. There must be a mistake. There has to be a mistake. 0. No way. He muttered over and over again, frantically tapping the mouse as if doing it faster could change the result. But the screen didn't budge. It still showed 0. Oliver, it's okay. One misstep doesn't matter. There's still the college entrance exam, I said, throwing his own words from earlier right back at him. Everyone stumbles once in a while. Don't take it to heart. Martin, this is your fault. What did you do? Oliver turned and grabbed me by the collar, yelling in a rage, teeth clenched. Oliver, what are you saying? I don't understand. I spread my hands in mock innocence, as if I truly had no idea what he meant. That's enough. The teacher quickly pulled the two of us apart. Scoring a big fat 0 isn't enough. You want to start a fight too? Only then did Oliver, eyes bloodshot and full of hatred, finally let go. What am I supposed to do with you two? Just look at this mess. He was about to launch into a lecture when his phone started ringing, rolling his eyes at both of us. He answered the call. Yes, principal. Yes, they're here. Understood. I'll send him over. After hanging up, he pointed at me. Martin, someone's looking for you in the principal's office. Go now. Chapter 8. After returning to the classroom from the principal's office, Oliver sat there alone, silently. People around him kept glancing his way, then lowered their heads, whispering and letting out bursts of laughter. He actually signed up for the exam himself and scored a 0. What a disgrace. He really overestimated himself. I mean, Martin also got a 0, but that was clearly due to some sudden accident or unexpected situation. But Oliver said it was an accident too. Yeah, right. Who would believe that? Oliver's face darkened with anger, his hands tightly clenched in his lap. This isn't how the plot is supposed to go. Why hasn't Oliver made his comeback? What's going on? How did he end up neck and neck with Martin? No idea. Let's keep watching. I pressed my lips together and smiled. Just wait. Bullet comments, you're never going to see the scene you're hoping for in this lifetime. Seeing me return, Oliver forced a strained smile. Martin, you're back. What did the principal want to talk to you about? I shrugged. He just wanted to ask what happened with my score this time. Yeah, Martin, how did you end up with a 0? Oliver asked anxiously, clearly eager to know the reason. Deep down, he had a sinking feeling, like things were slipping further and further out of his control. On the day of the exam, I ate something bad. I had a stomachache and was dizzy the whole time, so I ended up writing my answers in the wrong sections. In some places, I was so out of it I scribbled barely legible messes. I sighed and put on a helpless expression. After hearing that, Oliver seemed even more frustrated, as if a breath of air was stuck in his chest. After a pause, he mumbled, Martin, you've got to be careful. The college entrance exam is critical. You can't let this kind of thing happen again. I nodded repeatedly. You're totally right. I've got to be more careful. No more random eating. What a waste of such a good opportunity. Oliver said no more. He was also afraid I'd ask why he scored a 0 too, and about his embarrassing outburst in the office. He wanted to sweep the whole thing under the rug, but Veronica had no intention of letting him off the hook. Chapter 9. Well, isn't this the shameless Oliver who bragged about making a stunning debut? I'll admit, you sure did make a splash. Just in a very unexpected way. The moment she stepped into the cafeteria, Veronica raised her voice for all the students to hear. Veronica, it was just one exam. Mistakes happen. Martin also got a 0, didn't he? Oliver struggled to defend himself. Hey, I've said it before, what do you have to compare with Martin? Martin got a 0 because he chose not to take it seriously. Ask anyone here, who really believes it was because he lacks ability. The surrounding students all cooperatively shook their heads. No one believed that I, someone who always ranked first in the city, got a 0 because I didn't know the material. And even if Martin didn't get admitted early, he'd still have no problem with the college entrance exam. Can you, Oliver, guarantee the same thing about yourself? Veronica pressed on, firing her words toward Oliver relentlessly. Veronica had always been a spoiled heiress who never let anyone off the hook lightly. Sometimes, her ruthlessness even made me shudder. Why not? Anything's possible in this world. Oliver shot back at her, unwilling to back down in the slightest. All talk. Just empty bravado. Forget about the future, let's settle our bet right now. What are you supposed to call me? Veronica didn't care if Oliver's dignity was about to be trampled. She wanted him to honor the wager. Right there and then, Oliver scanned the room, searching for any chance to slip away. But the students who had gathered to watch the drama had already sealed off the area tightly, not leaving even the smallest gap. Veronica, show some mercy. We might have to see each other again in the future. Pfft. Veronica looked utterly disgusted. Every time I see you, I feel sick. Who wants to see you again? Just say it, Oliver. Are you a man or not? Can you keep a promise or not? With nowhere to escape, Oliver reverted to his former self from back in freshman year, head hanging low, muttering angrily under his breath. Grandma. Veronica beamed with satisfaction. What did you say? Speak up. Who can hear you talking like that? Oliver suddenly looked up and shouted, Grandma. Okay. And with that, he shoved his way through the crowd and stormed out of the cafeteria. Chapter 10. When I returned to the classroom, I saw Oliver sitting with his head lowered, furiously scribbling something in his notebook. As I passed by and glanced down, I saw the pages full of, you bitch, one day you'll be kneeling in front of me. Sooner or later, you'll be begging me. At that moment, the bullet comments popped up again, expressing sympathy for Oliver being bullied by Veronica. Poor Oliver. It's all Martin's fault. Why couldn't he just take the exam properly? Exactly. Now Oliver's reputation is in ruins because of him. No worries. Oliver still has 2 swap-outs left. Martin's doomed. The truth is, Oliver had been constantly dancing back and forth in front of Veronica, desperately trying to get her attention. In the end, when he failed and got humiliated, somehow I became the scapegoat. Well, those bullet comments say a lot about the people posting them. As Oliver saw me approaching, he quickly closed his notebook and forced a smile that looked worse than crying. Martin, you're back. Just a few weeks left until the college entrance exam. How's your revision going? I've got everything under control. Nothing's going to go wrong. Seeing how confident I was, Oliver hurried to advise me. Still, you shouldn't let your guard down. What if something like the early admissions thing happens again? Watching Oliver, who seemed even more concerned than I was, I knew he hadn't given up yet. He had clearly made up his mind to swap out my exam score. The accident with early admissions won't happen in the actual exam. I tapped my temple. After all, that knowledge is already carved deep into my brain. What you truly learn will always be yours. Otherwise, the truth will slip out eventually, don't you think, Oliver? I gave him a subtle warning. Oliver's eyes flickered, and he gave an awkward laugh. You're not wrong. Still, better safe than sorry. Gotta strengthen and consolidate to avoid unexpected issues. Chapter 11. Oliver was so afraid something might happen to me during the college entrance exam that, Despite his financial struggles, he actually took it upon himself to cover all my meals, just to make sure I wouldn't get food poisoning again. Whenever I so much as got distracted in class, he'd immediately tap me on the arm to refocus my attention. It felt less like having a classmate next to me and more like sitting beside a homeroom teacher. On the final day before the exam, as we were about to part ways, he pulled me aside and earnestly advised, "Martin, I know you're smart and capable, but don't get cocky. Plenty of people have stumbled in the final stretch." I nodded casually, amused, and said, "You be careful too. You may not quite be Peking University material, but you should have no trouble getting into another good school." After hearing that, a strange smile crept onto Oliver's face. "Don't worry, Martin, we're brothers, right? If you shine, I shine. If you fall, I fall too. As long as you ace the exam, I'll be fine." He waved and walked away. I watched his back, my gaze sharpening. "Oliver, if you screw yourself over, don't go blaming anyone else." Then came the excited bullet comments again. "Ho ho, the climax is coming. Martin, you're done for. The side character's about to exit, just one final scene left in a few years." I smirked. "You all want a show? Fine, I'll give you a damn good one." Chapter 12. Right after the college entrance exam ended, Oliver immediately called me. "Martin, how did it go?" "Nothing went wrong, right?" After asking multiple times to confirm everything had gone smoothly for me, Oliver finally hung up, only after insisting we return to school together to check our scores. Time flew by. On the night before the scores were released, we were all back at school, gathered in the homeroom teacher's office, waiting to check our results as soon as midnight struck. "Martin, this time my score is definitely going to blow your mind." The moment he saw me, Oliver started showing off. "I already estimated my score. This time, Peking University is no problem for me." "Well, that's amazing, Oliver." I played along with his boasting, and he became even more smug, immediately turning to brag to the classmates who used to look down on him. I just quietly stared at the clock on the wall, waiting for the arrival of midnight. As the clock struck 12, everyone, who had been half asleep moments before, suddenly perked up and rushed over to the homeroom teacher. "Teacher, check mine first. My exam number is." One by one, the results came in. Some were overjoyed, others disappointed. In the end, only Oliver and I were left. Just then, Veronica, who had checked her results in the next room, came over too, clearly waiting to see my results. I stepped forward and entered my exam number myself. I didn't hide anything. The screen loaded directly. "Martin. 0. Just like in the early admission test, a row of zeros followed each subject. "Oh no, Martin, what happened? How did this happen again?" Oliver put on a fake sympathetic face and gave me a few words of comfort before pushing me aside and eagerly typing in his own exam number. "Open your eyes, everyone. Get ready to witness greatness. It's coming. Oliver's score is about to drop. You haters, prepare to tremble and worship our Oliver." Even the bullet comments were getting hyped along with Oliver. But in an instant, the screen silenced them all. Oliver. 0. Exactly the same. Zeros across the board. How could this be? How could this happen? Oliver stumbled back and fell to the floor. "Oliver, are you okay? Hang in there." I pretended to help him up while leaning my head close to his ear. "Oliver, well, surprised. Do you like the little gift I gave you?" Chapter 13. This was all your plan. Oliver shoved me aside, eyes wild with fury. "You knew it all along, didn't you? You set this up, both times." In front of our classmates, I calmly brushed the dust off my clothes. "Looks like Oliver's a bit rattled. I mean, it's the college entrance exam. We all know I don't have the power to set things up." The contrast between us couldn't have been more striking. Same 0 score, but I was calm and composed while Oliver was losing it completely. His outburst earned him another round of scornful looks from the others. "Why would you do this? You dragged both of us down. Nobody wins." Oliver completely ignored the watching students and continued shouting at me like a madman. Sigh. "Teacher, didn't you already explain it to him?" I glanced at our homeroom teacher, whose expression was hard to read. The teacher shook his head. "You asked me to keep it secret, to avoid upsetting the others, so I didn't say anything." I feigned sudden realization. "Ah, right, sorry, teacher, that was my mistake." Then I pulled out a letter from my pocket, a recommendation letter from a professor at Peking University. That early admission exam where I got a 0, well, it was because I wrote all the answers on the scratch paper. I didn't write a single answer on the actual exam sheet. At the time, I figured I'd just give it up. But who knew the professors at Peking University would be so meticulous? They went back, checked my scratch paper, and realized I deliberately dragged out my words, locking eyes with Oliver, who was seething with hatred. My answers were perfect scores. When I went to the principal's office that day, it was to speak with the Peking University professor about it. I waved the letter in my hand. "So during the college entrance exam, I didn't even bother to answer because Peking University already promised to admit me. Oliver lunged forward, trying to snatch the letter, but the other students quickly stopped him. Veronica didn't miss the chance to mock him. This Oliver is something else. He's been obsessed with comparing himself to Martin. Even though the gap between them is light years wide, Oliver still struggled, shouting, "Martin, why did you do this to me? Me, you think I ruined you?" I finally dropped the act, my voice sharp. "I treated you like a brother since freshman year. Everyone here saw how I looked out for you, but what about you? What did you do?" Oliver's eyes burned with hatred and envy. "Don't give me that brother crap. All you ever did was throw me crumbs out of pity. I've never accepted that you had everything from the start. If I were in your shoes, I'd be even better than you. Don't get cocky, Martin. You don't know anything. I still have a trump card. Everything you have, it all belongs to me." Chapter 14. Oliver roared like a madman, eyes filled with determination. Yes, yes, Oliver still has one last swap out left. This is it, final comeback. Martin, get ready to simp and grovel like the side character you are. Even now, the bullet comments were rooting for him. As I looked at Oliver, a flicker of anticipation flashed through my heart. System, I want to swap out Martin's family. I want to replace Martin. After shouting that, Oliver let out a triumphant laugh. I was planning to wait until I got into Peking University to see if there was an even better family to swap with. But now that you've ruined everything, I'm dragging you down to the bottom with me. Martin, your parents, your fiancée Veronica, they'll all be mine from now on. With that, he shoved aside the stunned classmates and threw his arm around Veronica. I knew, after this, there would be no more Martin's family, only Oliver's. But Oliver didn't see the reaction he wanted on my face. No panic, no fear, just a look of relief, as though a weight had been lifted. Oliver, I told you once, anything given to you by others never truly belongs to you, and there's always a price to pay, even a family. I looked at him with calm eyes. So thank you, Oliver. Thank you for setting me free from that burden. Oliver's pupils shrank. A wave of dread swept over him. What do you mean by that? But before I could answer, the office door slammed open with a bang. Young master, bad news. The Business Bureau and Tax Authority are auditing the family business. The stock price is crashing. A middle-aged man, my former driver, rushed in and grabbed Oliver by the arm. Your parents told me to pick you up immediately. We need to go home and figure out a solution. Oliver shoved the man's arm off in disbelief, trying to convince himself it wasn't real. No way. I just swapped into this family. How can they be in trouble already? I shrugged. This is the family you were so envious of. Well, now it's your mess to clean up. Young Master Oliver. Oliver gritted his teeth at my lightly mocking tone. Don't be smug, Martin. I'll figure something out. He turned and grabbed Veronica. Veronica, you're my fiancée. My family's in trouble. Can your family help us out? But to Oliver's disappointment, Veronica shoved him away in disgust. Get off me. Who the hell is your fiancé? Our engagement was just a strategic alliance, two powerful families coming together. But now, your family's going bankrupt. Don't even try to claim ties with me. I watched the two of them struggle, then slowly applauded. Oliver, did you really think Veronica was clinging to me because she liked me? It was all about benefit, advantage, profit. Now you finally see the cost of taking what you didn't earn. The bullet comments exploded. No wonder the system waited until Oliver finished college to swap into Martin Chan's life. It was hiding the bankruptcy twist. So originally, it was Martin who pulled the Chan family back from the brink. This explains why Martin and Veronica had a childhood engagement but never actually got married. Chapter 15. Oliver was forcibly taken away by the driver, and the students who had come to check their scores gradually dispersed. I walked alone in the dark, heading toward the school gate. As I looked up at the twinkling stars in the sky, fragments of the past played out in my mind. Dad, I want to learn painting, study literature. I don't want to study science. No, the Chan family business will be yours to manage one day. You must study science and business management. Painting is a lowly pastime, not something someone like you should waste time on. Dad, please stop hitting me. I was wrong. Martin, if I catch you drawing behind my back again, I'll break your hands. Martin, don't blame your father. You were born into this family. This is your fate. Martin, tell me the truth. What's going on with that girl? Why is she always around you? She's just a classmate. She asks me questions about homework. You're overreacting. Martin, you need to understand, we were engaged as children. Our lives are tied together. I already spoke with that girl. You won't be seeing her again starting tomorrow. Veronica, that's too much. Whether it's too much isn't the point. Martin, our relationship isn't about feelings. If you don't want me to ruin her life, then stop trying to see her. Forget her, because I have 1,000 ways to destroy her. I closed my eyes as the evening breeze gently brushed across my face. Memories, like smoke, drifted through my mind, scene after scene, until they slowly faded away. I let out a long, deep breath. Starting today, The cage that trapped me has finally been shattered. I can now pursue everything I truly want. When I opened my eyes, the moonlight pierced through the night sky, lighting the path ahead. Without hesitation, I pulled out the letter of recommendation from Peking University and tore it to shreds. From now on, I'm living for myself. I can choose a different path. From inside my jacket, I slowly took out another admission letter and unfolded it. École des Beaux-Arts, Paris. Chapter 16. Years later, I was invited back to the city to host an art exhibition. By then, I had become a rising star in the world of fine arts. After the round of socializing and formalities, I slipped out the doors, seeking a moment of quiet. That's when a ragged vagrant stumbled past me. At times, he burst out laughing. I won. Everything you had is mine. Other times, he wept uncontrollably. It wasn't supposed to be like this. It wasn't. I swapped for everything I ever wanted. And sometimes, he shouted like a lunatic. System, I want to swap out. Let me swap out. Pedestrians on the street gave him a wide berth, avoiding him like the plague. I stood there, watching as he gradually disappeared into the distance. Just then, someone gently draped a coat over my shoulders. Martin, it's cold. Why did you come out without a jacket? What if you get sick? That familiar, caring tone. I turned around to see the figure who had once been forced out of my life. A warm smile bloomed on my face. Well, now I've got you to take care of me. See, I was only out here for a minute, and here you are with my coat. I pulled her tightly into my arms and kissed her deeply. Having you here makes everything worth it. She playfully punched me on the chest. Not in public. This is a street, you know. But the blush on her face betrayed the joy in her heart. Overhead, 2 chirping sparrows flew past, cheerful, unbound, just like the two of us now.